Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome to another edition of Inside Arsenal. It is Wednesday morning, and it's a pretty disappointing morning indeed after Arsenal's defeat last night in the Champions League away at Lens in France. So we'll get stuck into that in today's episode. We'll look at some of the big talking points. Look at what Mikel Arteta has to say. I'll give my player ratings at the end of it, as I didn't do one last night after the game. So we'll get stuck into that very, very quickly. But before we do that, just to say, this week's Inside Arsenal Extra Time with myself and James Benge, of course, that is going to be recorded a little bit later on today. So if you want to get in any questions for myself or James for that show, then leave them as comments down below in the bottom of this video, and we'll take a look through some of those. We'll be recording it pretty much in a few hours. It's going to go out obviously later tonight, about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, but we're recording it in a few hours. So if you do watch this pretty early on, then you do want your question or a comment or opinion, something like that, debated in the show, then do reply to this in the comments below and we'll go through them. Okay, right, let's get on to last night's game, shall we? Really disappointing one for Arsenal, losing 2-1, a game that they had firmly in their grasp and they just managed to let it slip away, which was really, really disappointing because they started well, they got themselves in front, and then, as I said, they just basically let it drift away from them, and they got punished by a Lens side who I knew were going to be a really, really difficult opposition going into it. I was so surprised ahead of the game at some of the things I was reading on. Again, I always say I'm so surprised, but then on social media, I'm never surprised. So it doesn't really, I'm kind of contradicting myself, but I was just really, really shocked at how it felt like so many people felt that this was a breeze and that Arsenal were going to be playing basically some League One team from England that they were going to cruise past and they could rest everyone for. It was always going to be such a difficult game. Yes, Lens have had a difficult start to the season, but this is a team that finished second, only 1 point behind PSG last season, who out of 19 league games, won 17, drew 1 and lost 1, who had the best defensive record in France. You know, they're no mugs by any means. They lost a couple of players, yes, but they are no mugs by any means, especially at home where they are so strong. You go anywhere in Europe, you're going to have a really difficult game away from home. You know, Arsenal struggled away from home in the Europa League, and this is a Champions League. This is another level, and this was Lens' huge night, their first game in this competition for 21 years. It was just always going to be a really difficult game. So I was really surprised at how many people thought Lens were going to be pushovers. You know, I was expecting a difficult match, and it was exactly that. It played in a real intense atmosphere. You know, people who were there, reporters that I know who were there, said it was one of the best atmospheres they've heard in a European away game. It was really intense, really hostile. Lens fed off that. And in the end, I think they probably just about deserved their win. I say that, I don't know, a draw probably would have been more of a fair result. You know, Arsenal, they got themselves in front and they were comfortable. They started the game well and they scored with Gabriel Jesus, which was a really nice finish from Jesus. Saka set him up. Arsenal sort of seized on a defensive error from Lens. And at that point, they looked really, really comfortable and you felt like they'd go on and get the second goal. And then conceded a really, really sloppy one that, you know, it was a brilliant goal, fair play to Lens, but it was just poured away. It was from a clearance from Raya, who was trying to find Tomiyasu out on the right on the halfway line. You know, it was not the best of clearances from Raya. I thought Tomiyasu was on his, you know, it was kind of just sat back expecting it a little bit, whereas the Lens defender read the situation well when he was on the front foot. Tomiyasu was on his back foot, and the Lens guy got there, but from then on, it was just brilliant from Lens. You know, the pass in, the control, the layoff, and then the finish was just absolutely exceptional. You know, they'll try that 25 times again, and they probably won't score it, but they did it in the real key moment yesterday, and they took the goal really, really well. And suddenly a game that Arsenal were in control of, it slips away from them. It was 1-1, Lens were on the front foot, and then Bukayo Saka got injured, which... me and James will talk about this a lot more in Inside Arsenal Extra Time today. I thought we'd have a really good debate about it. So, you know, I will talk about it a little bit now, but I'm going to talk about it more in depth in that show later on today with James. But obviously there was lots of talk ahead of the game about Bukayo Saka and his injury. And I'll just flick through to see what Mikel's saying here. This is what he said about the injury. He said he tried to back heel the ball in the first half and felt something. It was something muscular and he was uncomfortable to carry on, so we had to take him off. On the seriousness of Saka's injury, he said, we don't know anything more than that. Obviously, it was big enough for him not to continue to play the game, and that's a worry for us. He was then asked if he's going to be fit enough for Sunday. He said, I have no clue. I don't know. He continued, as you would imagine, he was asked, you know, do you regret playing Bukayo Saka in this game? Because all the talk ahead of the game, obviously, was should Saka be rested? He'd limped off against Bournemouth at the weekend. He limped off against Tottenham in the league game before that as well. So he hadn't finished the previous 2 league games because of injury. So all the talk was about resting Saka for this one. He was asked if he had any regrets about starting Saka. He said no, it was a knock that he picked up. It was a knock that he picked up the other day against Bournemouth, he means, and he was perfectly fine after that. It wasn't an action. It was a back heel that can produce this type of injury. Let's see what the extent of it afterwards, and not too late. When asked if the injury was in relation to the issues he suffered against Spurs and Bournemouth, he said they were more knocks than other things. The last few he hasn't really missed games. We gave him a break against Brentford in the Carabao Cup, and that was all. And as you can imagine, there's been a lot of reaction to it. I've got just a selection of what you guys have sent in overnight following Saka's injury. One from Chris, and Saka went off injured. This is why he needed a rest. KK Farber says, what is the point of having Reece Nelson sign a contract extension, then refuse to play him, even if you protect Saka for the biggest game of the season? Arteta is big-headed and clueless. DJ Frisky said, we just knew Saka was going to come off injured. Complete mismanagement for Arteta. And Daniel says the same sort of thing. Saka to miss Man City. Thanks to Arteta, he is now injured. He didn't need to play. No man management. When will we protect Bukayo Saka? And I absolutely understand all of those comments. My thing of it, and I said this yesterday, I think Saka definitely needs more rotation. He needs to be rested at times. Arteta needs to pick the opportunity well to rest Saka. He plays him too much. He keeps him on long enough. Personally, my opinion, and it's just my opinion, obviously I know everyone else has got different opinions, I don't think last night was a game to rest him. I think if he was going to rest him, he should have done it against Bournemouth. This is Tuesday night. Man City's on Sunday. There's 5 games different. This is a Champions League match. It's Arsenal's second game in the Champions League. They haven't qualified, nowhere near qualified. I just don't think you rest your best players in the Champions League in the second game in the group stage when you're really, really going for it. Saka's injury against Bournemouth, the issue of force him off, that was an impact problem. That was a foot injury from a tackle. This one yesterday it clearly looked like a hamstring. It was a muscle injury. I don't really see how they're related, to be honest. He was fit from, the impact injury was fine. He's been training all week. He's been fine. So I'm not sure. I don't really buy into he should have been rested last night in that game. I think he should have been rested, but he probably should have been rested against Bournemouth, and maybe not. And if he did start against Bournemouth, which he did, he should have been taken off as soon as Arsenal made it 3-0. And as soon as that penalty from Kai Havertz goes in, then you take him off. That's where Arteta needs to manage his minutes better. I think when you've got a player as good as Bukayo Saka and as absolutely essential to the team as Bukayo Saka, as we saw last night after he went off injured, the drop off in form and drop off in quality in Arsenal's attack, I don't really think you can rest him too much, especially not in a big Champions League game. Everyone was saying, it's only Lons. I just didn't get that argument. It's like, they're a good team. They're a very good team. At home especially, they're really, really good. I don't think you can really rest your best players. Real Madrid didn't rest Jude Bellingham last night against Napoli. When a player is that essential to the team, I think you play them in those big games. It's the other games that you need to sort of focus on in rotating and give him minutes. Did he really need to play against Bournemouth? No, Arsenal would have had enough to win that game against Bournemouth about Bukayo Saka. And even if you do play him, take him off as soon as it goes 3-0. Don't leave him on for 75 minutes, and then he gets an injury issue after that. So I think that's more my opinion on it. Again, it's just my opinion. I know plenty of you will disagree with me, but I don't look at it as last night as the mistake of playing Saka. I think there was, if he was injured, if he was fine to play, which obviously the medical staff believed he was, then I don't really see why you'd rest him in that match. There's 5 games before Manchester City on Sunday. It's ample time to recover. I just think you rest him against Bournemouth. That's when you pick and choose. You're giving your players minutes. And like one of the comments was about Reece Nelson. Play Reece Nelson against Bournemouth. Why can't he start that game? Why can't Emile Smith-Rowe start that game against Bournemouth? Fabio Vieira was on the bench against Bournemouth. He was fit enough to be on the bench. Why can't he start that game? I'm not sure Saka needs to start that one. But for me, I think, I have no issue with him starting last night. Obviously, it's a massive blow for him to get the injury. And now it's a big worry ahead of Manchester City. Obviously, the last couple of games when he's gone off injured with like the foot or ankle injuries, he's managed to be fit for the following game. He's really durable. He's got remarkable powers of recovery, seemingly, Bukayo Saka. This one feels a little bit different because it's a muscle injury. It looked like a hamstring. And if it's a hamstring, as we've seen with Gabriel Martinelli, there's no quick fix from that. There's no sudden, amazing recovery gets you fit for the next game, especially when you're a player like Bukayo Saka, who relies on that pace and acceleration. And, if you're 70-80% fit, which a lot of players are when they play matches, you can maybe get through them if it's an ankle problem or something like that. But if it's a hamstring, you can't, and you're risking further damage. So what remains to be seen. Obviously, the team will be coming back. They'll be at Colney now. They'll be doing all their recovery and all the checks will be taking place. But yeah, it is a worry, no doubt about that. And, as much as disappointing as the result was last night, I think certainly Saka's injury with that Manchester City game ahead, that's a big, big worry. But let me know what you guys think. I know lots of you are going to disagree with me and feel like he should have been rested yesterday, but not for me. I wasn't surprised he started. I thought he'd start, and I thought it was probably the right decision to start him. I just think he should have been rested previously against Bournemouth if you're going to rest a player ahead of that. Okay, this is what Bukayo had to say about the game. He's asked if the travel disruption on the way there sort of made any sort of difference in the performance. He said, "No, let's not put excuses. First of all, congratulations to Lons. They're a really good side, really well coached. We knew it was going to be a really tough match. We started the game and straight away got a grip of it, scored the goal. The most difficult thing, we were in total control of the game. One isolated situation we conceded and it was game on. We started the second half really good again, had a huge chance with Leo to put it 2-1. Not only that, we were preparing the subs as well. Tomiyasu has a big chance, and then they go out the other way and score a goal. The difference between today and PSV is clear. The difference was in the boxes. We had 4 or 5 big chances and didn't put them away, and we didn't defend the boxes well enough. It's true that there were moments in the second half we struggled to be more of a threat in the final third and attack certain spaces. Otherwise, they defend those numbers really good, and that's something to take for the next game." Yeah, and he's right. As bad as Arsenal were, and I thought they were bad in the second half, I think Saka going off really, really impacted them. They didn't have much pace. We didn't have any pace. And I think Lons could sense that they were quite comfortable at the back, and that allowed them to grow into the game a little bit in that second half. I don't think they were particularly threatening Lons, but they were just so clinical. The 2 goals they scored were fantastic finishes. And when you look at Arsenal, they had big, big chances in that game. Even if they didn't play that well, they had some massive chances and they didn't take them. Arteta referenced the Leandro Trossard one right at the start of the second half when he went through. Keeper saved it, should have scored. Tomiyasu, just before Lons made it 2-1, had that absolute sitter pretty much from the corner. Came in totally unmarked, 10 yards out on the half volley. He puts it straight at the keeper. Anywhere else, that's a goal. And within a couple of minutes, Lons gone down the other end of the pitch and scored. And as Arteta said, he was about to bring the subs on, but before those subs could come on, which I think would have definitely given Arsenal more of a foothold in the game because they were better after the substitutes came on, I thought. But before they could get them on the pitch, Lons had scored because the ball hadn't gone out of play. So those sort of things worked against Arsenal. And even in the last minute, Reece Nelson had that chance. The defender did brilliantly to block, which made it 2-2. And I think a draw would have been a fair result. I think when you look at the chances Arsenal created, the quality of the chances that they created, I think, no one could have argued had a draw been a result, but it wasn't. It was a defeat, and now Arsenal are in a little bit of trouble in the group. They're on 3 points. They're second. Luckily, PSV and Sevilla drew yesterday. It was a late equaliser for PSV, so they remain behind Arsenal in the group. But Arsenal got a really tricky away game in Sevilla next, and they need to get something from that, because if they don't, then they're going to be under a huge amount of pressure going into the final 3 games of the group stages. And it's what the Champions League's about. And, everyone said it when the draw came out, oh, it's an easy draw. It's just it's madness to think that. There's no easy games in Europe, let alone in the Champions League. And, Arsenal went to PSV last season, got absolutely steamrolled over there. And they've got to go there again in a few weeks' time. So that's not going to be easy. And yeah, it's just a bit of an eye-opener, I thought, yesterday. And it just was a really, really disappointing night all round. And but let me know what you guys think. And again, if you want me and James to discuss this, we're going to talk about it far more in depth in our show a little bit later on today, then do let us know in the comments below. Okay, before I go, I'll go through my player ratings from last night. As you can imagine, they weren't great. David Raya, obviously, it was an error from him. It was a poor clearance that led to the first goal. I don't look at it as a monumental error. We see those sort of things happen all the time. It was, it wasn't like he passed it out like Andre Onana did yesterday for Manchester United. On the just total sidetracking here, it's really one of the most annoying things about Arsenal losing last night is you couldn't get to really revel in the fact that Manchester United's crisis deepened even more with that home defeat against Galatasaray. You should be absolutely allowed to laugh at them an awful lot at the moment, but because Arsenal lost, it's quite hard to do that, which is annoying. But that clearance from Onana that led to the penalty, that was a horrible, horrible goalkeeping mistake. When you look at Raya's one, it was up towards the halfway line. It was still a long way away from the goal. It wasn't a disaster of a ball, but he could have done better. And I do think Tomiyasu was a little bit flat-footed as well, so he has to take some responsibility. But from then on, it was just a brilliant goal from Lons. But other than that, I thought Raya still played very, very well. I thought he came and claimed the crosses well. I thought his passing, his distribution was good, apart from that one clearance, but that was a bit disappointing. So I give him a 6. Tomiyasu was in for Ben White. There was one really good opportunity just before half-time when he got in on the overlap. It was pretty much the only time he did it. He actually did a bit of a Ben White overlap, got in, and Arsenal had about 4 players in the box, and he got the cross all wrong. And it's like, that's when you need Ben White playing in that position. And you know what you're going to get with Tommy. And he was defensively, he was pretty sound, I thought, for the majority of the game. Won some good headers, but it just doesn't provide that threat down the right hand side that Ben White does. So I gave Tommy a 6. Saliba and Gabriel I thought were good, although both of them will probably be a bit disappointed with the space. Both of the Lons goal forwards had to score their goals. Saliba sort of dropped off a little bit on both of them, and so I've got to sort of mark them down a little bit. I'll give them both a 6, I think, for that. Zinchenko was weird. I thought on the ball in the first half, he was very, very good when he had it, but Lons definitely exploited the space that he was leaving behind. There was a clear tactic from Lons. The second goal that they scored came from that space down Arsenal's sort of left back channel. When Zinchenko going forward, moving into midfield, and Lons got in down there, they really looked to attack that space. And defensively he was caught out a little bit. So I gave Zinchenko a 5. Odegaard, I thought, played pretty well in the first half and faded complete in the second half. Gave him a 5. Declan Rice was my man of the match. I thought he was the best Arsenal player again by quite a distance, to be honest. I gave him a 7. Havertz, a couple of nice things. A volley that was close to making it 2-0 in the first half, set up the chance for Trossard in the second half. But you just want to see a little bit more aggressiveness. I think you need that. The more I see Havertz in this left 8 role, and I know it's still early days, but looking at it, I just think he's just not doing enough in that role. I think if you're going to play Havertz, for me, you play him as a false 9 at the moment. I just think he's not got that intensity or that aggressiveness in midfield that you really need in that position. I think Arsenal are really lacking. As soon as Smith Rowe came on yesterday, I just thought he offered an awful lot more, and he did against Bournemouth. He just gets into those positions, he causes problems, he gets on the ball, he drives with it, he shows a little bit of intent. Just not seeing that enough from Havertz at the moment. And the more I look at it, and the more I want Havertz to play as the false 9 if he plays. But actually, to be honest, I'd just rather him be on the bench at the moment rather than starting. So Havertz I gave 6. Trossard I thought was really poor. He had that good chance in the second half. Other than that, he just wasn't in the game at all. I gave Trossard a 4. Saka, it's tough to really mark. He set up the goal, so he still, he had a goal involvement once again, but he went off before half time, so I'm not really going to give Saka a mark. And Jesus took his goal really well, really good finish, but he faded a little bit in the second half. I thought he got a bit frustrated. He was in a bit of a battle with the defender, looked to be getting a bit frustrated, so I gave him a 6. Of the subs that came on, Nelson Vieira came on. He was on for the longest, came on for Saka, just didn't really do much at all, really. Vieira, I didn't have the best of game. I gave him a 5. The rest of them, Smith Rowe, I thought was bright. He had a couple of shots that were saved and just looked like he was trying to make things happen in the short time he was on the pitch. More minutes, please. Just give him more minutes. Play him instead of Kai Havertz for me. Certainly in some games, he needs to be given more opportunities from the start for me, because he's looking bright. He's looking like he's going to make things happen when he's on the pitch. So I gave Ben White, it was 6. The rest of them, not really going to mark, to be honest. If I do, they're just an average 5 at best. All right, everyone, that's it from me this morning. Thank you very much for watching or listening wherever you are around the world. And again, look out for Inside Arsenal Extra Time, which is coming later this evening, late afternoon, early evening, probably about 5 or 6 o'clock UK time. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And again, if you want to get any questions or comments discussed on that show, leave them in the comments below and we'll go through them a little bit later on. Until then, everyone, have a very good day. Thank you for watching. Speak to you soon.